Hi friends, Ray from Honeytop Bees here in South Carolina. Today I am winterizing. It's kind of bad to call it winterizing, but I am winterizing my hives. Now I say that, I used to keep bees with my father in Vermont. Winterizing up there was a thing. Winterizing here in South Carolina, where we get snow maybe one time a year, and most winter days are in the 50s, is really not too much of a thing, but there are a few things that I do to get my hives ready. And so if you'd like to join me today, we're going to walk through some hives, and I'll show you some of the things that I do to get my hives ready for the winter months here in the brutal, frigid land of South Carolina. These are my Hive Alive fondant patties. I put these on the hive. This really is insurance. Most of my hives have enough honey on them. This just gives a little bit of extra incoming food for them, some nutrition, some nutritional value as well. So I've got a case full of these today. And I've got to remember my knife. I always seem to forget my knife. Being able to cut a patch out of those fondant patties, and I'll show you how I put them on the hive. One thing I just made a video on last week was my new 3D printed pollen feeder. I bet it's empty. Here it is right here. And so this is one of the things I do in the winter is provide pollen. Bees won't take it until there's something, if there's something else in the environment. Yeah, it's just about emptied out. Just filled it up. This particular model is a little bit smaller than I need for my bee yard. I'm gonna actually see about making a larger one myself, a model for that. So I'm also feeding the bees pollen substitute just in a cup as well to help out a little bit with that. But let me go ahead and get this filled back up. Hey girls, feeding time. I just filled this up yesterday, and they've already gone through it all, so. I'll fill up my other cup as well. Just to give you a time of year, we're in November right now. We still haven't had our first frost. But look at this. I love to see this in this hive. This looks, got a lot of activity here. Well, we had more a minute ago. A lot of activity in the yard today. All right, so a few things that I do to winterize my hives. I'm gonna try to do this without a bee suit on. The bees seem like they're pretty happy right now. First of all, I will switch out my bottom boards from screen bottom boards to solid bottom boards if I remember, but I definitely make sure that I put all my inserts back in. Ideally, I'd like to maybe cut the draft down a little bit in the winter months by taking the screen bottom boards off and putting the solid bottom boards back on, but honestly, some years I never get to it and it doesn't really seem to make any difference at all. A lot of people ask me about, okay, what do you do about your inner covers? So I use these vented inner covers. And I've talked about these quite a bit. So it's just like an inner cover on the bottom. I'm going to show you a close-up in a minute. But it has vented holes on the side. And so that allows air and moisture to escape out of the top instead of just relying on the little entrance that is often with a regular inner cover. Allows for a lot more airflow inside of the hive. But in the wintertime, I don't really want that. Now, the company that sells these inner covers sells them with a piece of styrofoam that you can put in the middle to cut that down and add some insulation on the top. And the company that makes them is actually in Ohio, colder winters for sure. But I don't get those from them. I just tell them to keep them because I never really use them. Instead, what I do is I place my fondant patty, like I'm going to show you here in just a moment when I put my bee suit on. I put my fondant patty over the top of the hole here in the middle, which really cuts off most of the ventilation inside of the hive. Now, I know beekeepers, probably one of the biggest things we debate on every year is ventilation versus no ventilation inside of your hive, insulation, no insulation, etc. And like I say, I've kept bees in 2 different states, a northern climate in Vermont and now here in South Carolina. And my experience here in South Carolina is that I need some ventilation going through my hives in the winter. But if you do it differently, that's up to you. But for me, I like to have some ventilation in air movement inside of my hive, but not that much, like very minimal. But I don't want to seal it off from any entrance except for the front entrance. So I like to have a little bit of air going through the top here. So let me put my bee suit on and I'll show you how I feed my hives in the winter. If you have not yet joined our community by subscribing to my channel, I invite you to do so by hitting the subscribe and the like button below. It means a lot to me. Also, if you are new to beekeeping or have not yet started beekeeping, I just want to let you know that on my website I have a full beginner's beekeeping course called Beekeeping with Ray, over 42 lessons that go through everything that you need to make it through your first year of beekeeping. I encourage you to check out that course on my website, and if you use my name, Ray, at checkout, it'll give you $20 off the course. So take advantage of that and learn beekeeping with Ray. All right, let's go ahead and take a look in here and see what we got. First of all, I'm gonna lift up on the hive, make sure we still got some good weight in it, which we do. Move the camera closer for y'all. All right, so this is what I'm talking about with my vented inner cover. It says 1 hole in the center. I put another 1-inch hole here. I'll show it to you. I put another 1-inch hole here in the corner so that when I cover this up, there's still a little bit of ventilation coming through this. And just taking a quick peek at this hive, all looks well. Not really doing inspections today, I'm really just feeding. So I'm just gonna cut basically about a 4-inch square out of the top of this. Peel this plastic off. And then I'm just gonna lay this right over the top of that hole in the center like that. That's it, that's all that I do. I'll leave that on there for the course of the winter. And probably each hive will go through 2 or maybe 3 fondant patties over the course. They last about 6 weeks, I find. Depends a little bit on how much honey there is and the weather outside and how things go, but about one per month or every 6 weeks or so. So I plan on at least 2 to get through February. March, we start looking to sugar water to stimulate the queen to lay again. All right, so I'm just gonna go right down the line. Now this glove has a very important purpose. This glove, I stuff it in the little front entrance of the notch in the inner cover to reduce the entrance so that there's not as much chance for robbing. Sorry, I'm looking for my tool to poke this back in. So I usually just stick, these are the old gloves that I use, and usually stick this in here just to prevent robbing. Getting a little bit beyond robbing season now, but I'll probably leave it in for another week or so. That's just one less entrance for them to take care of. All right, let's put a few fondant patties on and just check these hives over. This hive is full of bees. Love to see that in the fall. While I'm going down the line, I should talk a little bit about feeding sugar water in the winter time, because a lot of beekeepers, just because they hear about sugar water a lot, especially if you're just getting started, just like, okay, I just need to keep feeding them sugar water. But actually, when the temperature gets below 55 degrees, you really need to stop feeding sugar water and move to fondant, which is what I'm showing you today, or move to just plain white sugar. There's several reasons for that. And I've made a whole video on my YouTube channel. I'll put the thumbnail up here so you can find it, that explains why we can't feed sugar water when it's under 55 degrees. So there's several reasons for that. First of all, you have to remember that for the bees, sugar water is like a nectar substitute. It's a carbohydrate substitute. And so when they receive it, they want to basically make it into a honey-like substance. And frankly, it's pretty amazing that the bees are able to take something like sugar water and make it into a honey-like substance. And probably shouldn't tell you this because we don't want people to get any bad ideas, but there are people that, fraudulent honey sellers, that just make honey out of sugar water. They just feed their bees tons of sugar water and let them make honey out of that. And it's very difficult to distinguish to the taste buds the difference between sugar water honey and real honey. And so if you feed sugar water to your bees and it's under 55 degrees or so, they're going to try to make that into honey. Problem is they can't. They have a difficulty digesting sugar water when it's below 55 degrees. There's some reasons for that regarding enzymes in their gut. They also have a hard time dehydrating that, because when they get under 55 degrees or so, they get into a cluster inside of the hive in order to stay warm. They're not able to dry that sugar water out as they do nectar and make it into a thicker substance that they can use. It also stays inside of their gut because if it's cold out, they don't want to break cluster, and that can cause dysentery inside of the hive as well. So typically, I use 55 degrees as my benchmark. When the daytime hives get in the mid 50s or so, that's when it's time to not feed sugar water anymore and to go to a fondant-like substance. Sometimes people ask me about the differences with keeping bees in Vermont with my father and keeping bees in South Carolina. And, they both have advantages and disadvantages. As I remember growing up, and I hope my memory is accurate, the nectar flow in New England was much longer than it is here in South Carolina. Here in South Carolina, really, it's like April, May, maybe a week or two in June. It just depends how things go. And it's over. And you've got to take your honey off. You've got to take your honey off sometime early June, or they will just eat it up when the dearth hits. And so one of the biggest differences is the nectar flow. And the nectar flow, I got to give the grade to up north. It was much longer and much stronger. I've always been, no matter how many years I've kept bees here in South Carolina, I have always been disappointed in how long, or I should say how short, the nectar flow actually is, and how difficult it is to get any larger quantities of honey from the hives as compared to Vermont. So definitely got to give Vermont the thumbs up on that one. But that being said, when it comes to overwintering the bees, I definitely got to say, South Carolina is a lot easier to overwinter bees than it was in New England. We just, our winters are are just so mild. If you're watching this video and you realize they already did this hive, I need you out here to remind me where I'm at because I'm trying to talk at the same time. Wintering bees here in South Carolina is, so much more, so much less work and so much really, less anxiety. We can do hive checks because we have days that get above 60 and we wouldn't go through, all of our hives, but we can just do a spot check if we want to in the top frame and see what our honey stores look like without really any concern. It just was never like that in New England. You just really wouldn't get near your hives once the snow fell. You wouldn't get near your hives again until it thawed out, really. Push over, girls. Coming through. So they both have their pluses and minuses. This hive here is a little bit, feels solid today. It's been a little bit of a problem hive for me. I'm just gonna check and see if I see any brood in it. Sorry, no fancy camera work today, just kind of coming along for the visit. Yeah, I'm gonna check for brood in this hive because at one point this hive was queenless and I think they requeened. Whoa, they got a lot of bees if they're queenless, that's for sure. Just so you know, it's about 65 degrees today. It's really a beautiful day. That's all honey. I really don't want to go in the bottom box and break up all that propolis that they have. But I think I'm going to. I just want to make sure because if they are still queenless, I would rather know now and combine them for the winter. So I guess I'm going to take a peek. I don't need to go through, especially this time in November, I don't need to go through frame by frame, every single frame and see what's going on. I just want to make sure that they've got a laying queen in here. So to do that, I'm just going to check the middle frame or the middle two frames if I don't see any brood on the middle frame. And I actually prefer to pull out the plastic frames because they don't fall apart. You don't see any brood there. Whoa, look at all those bees. But I do see some brood here. So that's good. That's what I want to see. All right, girls, that's all I needed. Sorry to bother you. I like to keep this scraped off because come springtime here in a few months, everything gets stuck together. Finally got my apiary. I run 35 to 40 hives, about what I like to run, and finally have my apiary to where I have mostly nice bees. I just have one hive at another location that is just a little bit, what would we say, excessive. And that one's gonna get requeened here in a couple months. And I gotta say, it's such a joy, so much more of a joy. Like, I have bees flying around me, but there's always a difference to me between bees that are like flying around me to attack, looking for any, hole in my glove or anything to sting me, versus those that are just flying around and are curious or just upset a little bit that you you were messing with their space. Take a quick peek. All these hives look really, really good for this time of year. They're just full of bees, both boxes just full of bees, really happy. I have been more diligent this year with mite treatments and nutrition than I ever have. And I've always been kind of big on both of those, but this year, like, I don't know, I've just been a lot more proactive, and it is paying off. I say that now, who knows, right? Winter has a way of exposing everything that we do or don't do right during the fall months. Well, this hive, I do not have a vented inner cover on. And so I have to go get a shim. I'll show you how that works. I'll be right back. So yeah, this is good for those of you that don't want to use those vented inner covers but still want to feed. So what I have to do in this hive is I have to just add a shim to it. And I'm going to put the shim on top of the inner cover, which basically creates a feeding tray right here for me for the winter. Let's just take a quick peek. They are also looking great. Very happy with my hives right now. I sure hope I feel the same way in the spring. All right, so this is an 8-frame inner cover. I just pop that on top so that I have some room for my fondant patty. And you really, I mean, you can make your own feeding shim. There's really nothing to it. It's just like, it can be 1 inch, it can be 1.5 inches. It doesn't really matter. It's just the size of the, I use 8-frame equipment, so it's just the size of my 8-frame box. That's all there is to it. All right, I got 4 more hives on this side of the yard, and that's probably all I'll show you today on video. Then I'm gonna go to my other locations and do the same, but let's go ahead and finish up this last row of 4 more hives and we'll be done. Oh, this is interesting. I want to show you this. I had one other hive do this. Look at this. You see how they're filling that up with propolis, this big hole here in the middle? And look, they filled in this hole over here with propolis as well. I don't know why some hives do that and some hives don't, but apparently they don't want that much ventilation, which they're not going to get it because I'm going to close it off with a pollen patty anyway. So I'm going to scrape the propolis out only because I want them to be able to access the pollen patty. But if they don't want this much ventilation here in this hive, that's fine. I'll just let them make their own decisions. Most of the hives don't do that at all with these holes, but this is the second hive that I have had that has started to want to fill this in with propolis. It's just a sappy pine tar kind of residue. Y'all have worked really hard to put that on there. All right, I've got most of it off. That's good enough. I'm not sure how many of you are left still watching this video at this point, because statistically, I know people don't always make it to the end of a video after they feel like they get the gist of it. And honestly, I do the same thing, so I can't really be critical of anybody else. Although I'd love for you to stay around as long as you can and are willing to. But I was just thinking about the beekeeper's winter a little bit, and how, you know, we gear up all year round for those big weeks in the spring where we're splitting and making queens and harvesting honey and nectar flow, and our hives are exploding, and maybe you sell nukes like I do, or packages, and there's always just that anticipation, you know, that you work toward all year long. And like even right now, it's November, and I'm still 5 months away from when that all starts here, South Carolina, in late February, March. And but I'm already anticipating it. I'm like, okay, these hives are looking good for spring, and I'm already getting, you know, somewhat excited about the potential for the, how are these hives gonna do over the winter, you know? Because like I'm looking at these hives and they're really just doing well as far as their population. Really treated them all for mites several times in several different ways throughout the year. So their mite counts are pretty low last time I checked. And so I'm like, maybe this year I'll be able to come out of winter even stronger than I have in years past. Last year, trying to think what my loss numbers were. Uh-oh. This one still has old sugar water in it. That is no good anymore. The bees are not taking to it, and I'm not going to leave this. Yeah, this hive does not look good. Okay, hold on a second. All right, so I am not seeing nearly as much activity over here. I've just been telling you how good I feel about how my hives are doing. Not this one, which is actually strange because this has been a stronger hive of mine. The sugar water in here was, they didn't finish it, number one, which is very odd. I don't see any bees in the bottom box. And I see some bees here at the top. Just a little bit of nectar there. And just honey there. This is a frame that they're just starting to draw on. Kind of want to either find the queen or make sure that she's laying. I do see some bees in the bottom. Box. Glad I noticed that sugar water was still in here, because it should not have been in here, and it definitely was bad. It was brown and nasty and probably fermented at this point. I would like to see some brood here. And then I think I'm just going to put a couple of extra frames. Still a good population of bees, but not seeing any brood. This is pretty light. I'm just gonna pop a frame here and see if I have any brood, because this hive has suddenly become a little concerning to me. Of course, I'd love to see the queen as well, but yeah, no brood. All right. This one I don't know what to do with. At this point, I'm probably just gonna leave it be for a little bit. Some queens stop laying completely in the winter when it gets cold, but seems like I should see some brood in some stages here. Let me see if I see some larvae in there. I feel like I see a few larvae. Look in one more frame. Nothing. There's no brood in here at all. So I'm just checking to see if she's on this end frame. All right, I'm gonna have to come back to this hive. I'm gonna have to think about what to do here. Because I don't see any brood. And I've got to go get a couple frames to fill in here. I know there are some guys that say you can theoretically, possibly get your hive over winter without a queen. I've never been successful in doing that. Most people say it can't be done, especially this early in the winter. I don't even think technically it's winter, right? I don't think winter starts until December. So anyway, I'm not real sure what I'm going to do about this last one. But thanks for joining me today. I hope some things along the way maybe will help you with your beekeeping journey, and do a good job, get your hives ready for winter, and let's have a great spring together. This is Ray from Honey Tap Bees. Thanks for watching my video, subscribing to my channel. It means a lot to me. Thanks. Take care.